Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Hey, what's our @ symbol? I don't know what that means.
So
I don't know Instagram.
So I used to call them handles until, our, expert engineer, barista Brian says,
Audiohive.com, by the way.
Audiohive.com, Chicagoland. No, it's, he's like, wow, they're like @ symbols or hashtags. Okay, so on Instagram, which we have some, fairly good presence on Instagram, we are Sober.Coffee Podcast.
Okay. Why does somebody want to follow that?
We put some pretty sexy pictures about sobriety and episodes.
Pictures of me.
Well, we
I mean, that's synonymous with sexy.
Yeah, well, we usually scrub you out of them, but that's okay.
Detected.
Yeah, that's all right, man. But we want to keep your mom in touch with us, so, she's our number one fan.
Yeah,
so
she's a big Instagrammer.
Yeah, it's good. And we're on Sober.Coffee Pod on Twitter, at Stay Sober Today on Twitter. And our website.
It's Sober.Coffee.
Sober.Coffee.
Sober.Coffee.com.
No, everybody gets it wrong.
Coffee.
Like, man, we can't find your website. Sober.Coffee.com. I'm like, no,
and
it's
we just
Sober.Coffee.
found out that, and I'm gonna ask our guest to.
I know we have a
pipe in
table
here
for three, man. I
table
love
for
it.
three. Emil's here, but Emil, if they go to another one, what is it? Lastcall.coffee?
Lastcall.coffee.
And that'll point them right to
that
Sober.Coffee?
puts them right to Sober.Coffee.
So if you're hanging around, late at night and it's last call time, just
I love that.
type in lastcall.coffee.
Either one of those are easy to remember.
That's right.
So,
That's right. So, we have table for three today. Got a really good friend of mine in for coffee with us today. I've known Emil for a few years now, and I think it's a real dichotomy that he's here because
he's using one of my favorite words, everybody.
He uses his
dichotomy.
Dichotomy. He loves dichotomy.
Wait, I have to look that up.
Two opposed or contradictory groups.
All right, there you
go.
go. So anyway, I got a little bit of history with Emil. A great group that I go to, a meeting I go to on Saturday mornings with a bunch of quality people on the road to recovery, and got to meet him there, and the more I got to know him, the more I got to realize that he's living the 12th step. He's living his purpose, and he's out there in the community doing things that, I find amazing. So I won't get to the end of the book there, but the beginning of the book is that Emil's here having coffee. Emil, hello.
Hello, how are you guys?
Welcome.
By the way, Emil's a rock star.
Oh, God.
He's just a rock. He's got a face made for radio, for podcasts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
15 minutes of fame. I've had a couple of them.
Yeah. Hey, don't worry. We will go 20 minutes for you.
So, Emil, welcome, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to get to some of the projects you're working on right now because I've been following them along since the beginning. But why don't you give our those listening a little background, a little short and skinny on Emil? And on Seinfeld, George Costanza once said, Jerry, if you take my life and you condense it down to 20 minutes, it's really quite impressive.
I love that show. That is so funny.
Yeah. So,
and just to let everybody know, he walked in with a briefcase.
I know. I thought he was the IRS.
And it's ticking, everybody.
It's ticking.
I know. That's awesome.
So give us a little backstory.
All right. My name is Emil Burke. If we get into the whole synopsis of where I was, what happened, where I'm at now, we're going to be here a long time.
7 sessions.
It really is. It's a really long story. Sometimes when I'm at an open, I'll let you guys know, and you can come along and listen to the Festival of Lights story.
Bring a lawn chair.
Bring a lawn chair. Bring a lazy boy.
Yeah.
No, but I had a band. I was in a really good band, and where I guess it started a lot of the drinking, the partying, the cocaine use, the things that I used to do. It started when I got a son, Jonathan Brandmeier, and we were pretty big in the city. And, when you do a big radio show like that, you get like a lot of weddings and a lot of work. And you get a lot of chances to drink and get crazy, So I started to recognize, as every probably alcoholic or drug user that I know, is that I was running into a problem. And the only way out of that problem was for my continual relapse. I'd go to meetings, hate everybody, think everybody's nuts at an AA meeting or something, and then just realize that the only one that's nuts is me. But, this program takes a little bit of time. For me, it took 12-step work, like you were talking about, Mike. And Gary, Gary L. I'll say, I won't say his last name.
My great grand sponsor.
He's a wonderful person. He really is. I met him when I was first on the corrections committee. He was the chair when I came in. So what happened to me is I registered upstairs somewhere that I had an ego problem, that I was the problem. I needed to find a higher power like we do in this program. And once I found it, it seemed like the direction took me towards the jails, which was bizarre because I was always a really good driver, especially when I drank. I'd check that license plate lamps. I would check the headlights, turn signals. So I thought, and I never got a DUI. I never really spent any time in jail. And I was at an open meeting one time.
Hold on. You said I never really spent any time in jail.
I've spent one night.
Okay, all
I
right.
spent a night. And
I caught the word.
Love the details.
Yeah, right.
When I was 16, I think that was the time, too, I kicked a policeman. I think he was putting me on the back of a car, and I kicked back and caught him, which led to about 8 of them, cuffing me and taking me in. But in any case, I was at this open meeting in Oak Lawn, and I remember there was a guy, and he was from Russia. Him and his wife, they were open speakers. So, when you're at an open meeting, everybody's listening. Nobody really talks. So at the end of the meeting, I went up to shake his hand. And what was funny is I just shook his hand, and he looked at me, and he pointed, and he said, "You would do really good at the jail." And I thought, this guy doesn't even know me. How could he tell? So right when somebody plants a seed like that, you start to wonder. It starts to register. Is that a higher power? Is that something? What's he talking about? Well, my background, I did have a security clearance at one time. I normally don't talk about it, because I'm a veteran. And to go into the jail.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. And to go into the jail with any kind of a background that has anything to do with law enforcement is a big no-no. But it wasn't, I didn't have that much of a high position in law enforcement. What I did was, some MP duties, I guess, when I was in the service. But what I'm saying is it made it register in my mind. I said, I wonder if I could get an ID to go into Cook County Jail. So it got to be kind of a joke because I thought, I wonder if I still have a security clearance because I'm out of the Army now like 20 years. And I'm thinking, I wonder if I do. So I applied. And sure enough, I got it. And I'm thinking, I don't want to go into the jail. Who wants to go into a jail? Yeah, right. And so now I'm kind of stuck. So now I do go. 2 guys meet me at Division 11, and I'm scared to death. And they are talking to me, and they haven't brought any of the detainees in yet. They like to be called detainees when they're in a county or a local jail. They don't like to be called inmates because they haven't been convicted yet and gone to prison with their sentencing. So they don't like to be called inmates or convicts.
Interesting.
It is. In a county jail, they prefer to be called detainees, and it's really hard when you hold an AA meeting in a county jail. It's so different than going into like Stateville where somebody's already sentenced, because when they're sentenced, they already know how long they're in for, and they're a lot calmer, and they know when they come to an AA meeting, they know why they're there. Whereas a county jail, it's a little bit more difficult to deal with them because they're anxious to get out and smoke pot or drink beer with the boys. Sure. So it takes a little bit more. So what had happened to me is I was in Division 11, which is like the general population at Cook County Jail. And I was there for, I'm going to say a year, maybe a year and a half. And a commander came in and he said, Emil, he goes, "You're very good at this. You would do great across the street." And I said, "What's across the street?" And he said, "Division 10, maximum security." And I said, I remember looking right at him and I said, "You can call Alcoholics Anonymous." I think I even gave him the phone number. I said, maybe they'll send somebody down because I'm not going into maximum security. I'm not going to deal with any gang members or with anybody who's murdered or raped or whatever their charges are in there, because you're dealing with the maximum felonies if they're inside a maximum security at the jail. And then, how this program works, driving home, once again, that higher power's tapping me on the shoulder, thus the word dichotomy, like the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other. The devil telling you shouldn't go in there, the angel saying you need to go in there. You could probably help somebody. So needless to say, that's kind of where I have been for the last 5 years. The pandemic pulled me out of there for like a year and a half. I just got my ID back last week. So I haven't been in the jail in a year and a half, but now they're bringing me back on the 30th. And where are they sending me? Immediately to the psychiatrists that are there. I'd worked with the Dr. Augustine. She's leaving on Friday. I worked with the Dr. Claire Surak. She left last month. So now they're going to put me with the Dr. Hughes. And these are your psychologists and psychiatrists that are at a county jail. And what I do is I'll go into 8 RTU, it's called. It'd be Division 8 RTU, and the RTU is Residential Therapeutic Unit. So on the 30th of this month, that's where I'll be going in to work with them.
You're deep in the weeds on me now, right now. You're deep in the weeds. So you have an AA meeting there. So you're bringing the message of experience, strength, and hope to people who are incarcerated, and they're there because they want hope. They want something better than what, in many cases, got them there.
Right.
So it's a scenario unlike, a AA meeting at a country club.
Right. Oh, it's a whole different scenario. Right. It really is. Yeah. We used to get people used to say, like Gary asked you, he said, do you want to come into the jail with me? We used to be able to get passes, and it's really just gotten really difficult. And we almost have to, we just have to really pre-check a person to make sure. I always want people to come to our meetings, which are at the end of the month. The last Wednesday of the month, we have a corrections meeting that's held downtown at Casso at 180 North Wabash. And that's the last Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. And if they come to maybe 5-6 meetings and I see that they're interested in maybe going to the jail and they want to hold a meeting, then I'll try to get them an ID. And a lot of people will quit. I used to find if I got you an ID and you went in and you didn't like it, you'd leave. And then the county started to get upset with me because they're giving IDs to these people.
So you got guys that are in and they've got a time frame. Tell me about the impact you think is being made. I mean, first of all, drugs are available inside
everywhere. Sure.
So it's not like they're in a drug-free zone.
No.
Right. So they're combating this
So
problem.
they still have a choice. If they want to use or not.
But yet their prognosis for freedom could be anywhere from 5 to 15, 25 years, whatever the case may be.
Or never.
But they just want life better inside. I mean,
it's what, if they're caught smoking pot, a lot of the guys that I deal with, if they're in a therapeutic unit, it's almost like they have a therapeutic unit. They have your maximum security. They've got general. I mean, I can give you all the divisions, but it'd take us again forever. But if they're in a boot camp or they're in a therapeutic unit, they're in a part of a jail where they have to remain sober and they have to be disciplined. They can't act up or they lose that privilege and they put them back where they were. So a lot of times when I first started going there, when they first put me in Division 10, I would get probably about that amount of guys. Maybe 10, 12 guys would come to the front of the tier. Now, the guards are behind you with radios. You actually go out on the tier, and you have 10 guys. You got 50 guys about to a tier. So you'll have 10 that'll come up front. Now, what happened to me is that when you're new there, a lot of times they're flushing the toilet, making noise, and making fun of you because they don't want to get sober. That's the last thing they want to do. And after you're there for a while, what I would do is I would bring things in. I learned very early on that if you're going to try to hold an AA meeting, you need alcoholics. If you're anywhere in a therapeutic unit, like when I go into Advocate Christ Hospital on Fridays, instead of them putting me into the chemical dependency unit, they put me in the behavioral unit into 5 South. And the reason they do that is because I've got a better experience at working with people when they have an alcohol drug problem or if they have a caffeine smoking problem, relationship problem. So I can take the Hazelton material, perhaps through that book by maybe Larson and Haggerty, Believing in Myself. I can take a self-esteem issue and start to turn it around to the sense that where I'll type things up out of these books and bring them into the hospital or the jail, and then I'll leave them with these things. I'll take like maybe 5 things and type them up, and then we'll either discuss them or we'll go through them. And they're based on, I'd say, more self-esteem than they are on an alcoholic issue. So what happens when you do that, you start to get everybody interested instead of just the alcoholics. So after I'm there for about 6 months, one day I walk in, and all 50 of these guys are seated. And there's 2 shrinks from the jail that are there. So now I'm really nervous because I'm thinking the shrinks are going to look at me and say, how does that make you feel, Emil? I'm thinking I'm going to get that kind of stuff. Well, what I did is I did exactly what I told you. I handed out material, and then we reviewed it. and they were all like just with it. It was strange to see for me. And the strangest part of all, if you guys ever had any kind of an epiphany from your drinking, it's like when the big guy speaks to you, it's very bizarre how it happens. Now, I held this class, I passed out these things, and a doctor, she walked up to me afterward and she said, 2 of the guys asked if I had talked to you. And I said, about what? And she goes, well, we have attorney doctor privilege here. They think that I've talked to you because you were dead on the topic. It's what we talked about all week. And it made the hair on my arm stand up. Because
that's really cool.
You're working the 12-step, right? I mean, you're out there doing it. But a lot of us don't have the whatever. We haven't been spoken to yet with that epiphany
about
moment.
The jails.
That's right, about the jails. But
I've been spoken to and I've ignored it.
So how can people, I guess, let's get right to the chase. How can people help you help them?
Well, a lot of times if I get normal, you know what? It's very strange the way it happens. The guys that come in that seem to want to work in the jail have just an uncanny ability to deal with the criminal mind. And I've seen guys that have felonies. You need to have 10 years free of a felony to even get an ID for the background check. But they have that ability to work with the guys that are in jail. When you look at our entire program, when you think about Dr. Bob or Bill, and you look at their personalities, Dr. Bob was a quiet man, more or less, yet he was the one that would tell Bill, let's keep this thing simple. And that's as simple as it really gets. Bill was the talker. Bill was the guy that probably would use the word conundrum or paradox or certainly my dichotomy. But, he was the one that always had the big words. You could tell that when you read the 12 and 12 or even the 1 through 164 in the big book. But there is something with the higher power that put them two together. And there's something with the jails that I see with the people that I work with. It's the same scenario. It's almost like, should everybody go in and try it? No.
So what are the people that aren't going to go in and try it do? Because you got this coin thing that you do. You got other ways to help put books into the
the thing that they can do are grapevines. If you guys have looked at the grapevines lately, do you remember the old grapevines had staples in them?
Right.
They don't anymore.
Okay.
They're all glued. So all those grapevines now can go into the jail. Okay. They're not allowed to have metal at the jail. So here's one thing where people don't think that if you're incarcerated or that if, they don't think they can make a change. Now, one guy one time in the jail at one of my meetings, he said to me, we can't have coins like the regular inmates or the regular people on the outside can. So that's when I called you, Mikey, and I was telling you that I need some paper coins. And what we had, ladies and gentlemen, is Mike set me up with a guy, I can't remember his name, Mark.
Mark, yeah.
And I mean, Mark was just great. And it took me 2 years to get this coin. It's a paper coin, and it says 24 hours on it. It's got our Unity Service Recovery.
It's acceptable to go into the jails.
It took 2 years to get the paper approved because they kept jamming the paper into the lock so they could get out at night and watch the TV. They couldn't get out of jail, but they could get out of their cell and get into the day room.
Oh, wow.
So it took Mark a while to get this paper to where it was.
It had to be the right chemicals and everything else.
It just had to be thin enough. I don't know what they finally did, but they finally got approved. Well, lo and behold, all you alcoholics that are listening to me out there, I know you've got OCD like I do. So when I got out and you people saw these coins, these paper coins, what I did is I put an American flag and a Chicago flag with 24 hours on the coin. The flags are in a triangle form, and it says, to yourself be true a day at a time. And it's got the Serenity Prayer on the back. And the reason that I did use to yourself be true is because the trademark to thine own self be true comes from, I don't remember which one, if it's Othello. It's a Shakespearean quote, but I'm not sure what play. Right. But they do have it trademarked, and I didn't want to try to bring AA into something where it would be a trademark infringement thing. So I thought it was just best to come up with to yourself be true, because that's basically what it means. And then what I did is I made a bunch of coins that are metal coins. This started with one, and the reason I say OCD is because I was only going to have 1 or 2, and now we've got 12. Right. So it's really grown.
And I have several of them, and they are high quality.
Well, I brought you guys some, so you'd have something.
That's awesome.
I brought you a little, a gift pack, so you have something for yourselves.
But this is the thing. People could check out your website, which will be in our resource room.
Sure.
And they can buy a coin.
If they buy one, it puts a big book in jail.
It puts a big book. That is so awesome. So there's no...
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Aren't those beautiful, high-quality coins?
Oh, my gosh.
And you know what's kind of funny too is now Will County. I've got to take a orientation course now for Will County, which is coming up on the 21st of this month. So they're going to issue me a second ID. This is unheard of. Normally, if you have one ID to go into a jail, they won't give you another ID. So I don't know if it's the pandemic. I guess I'll see when I get in there, because you do have to let them know that you're going into Cook County Jail. And the reason they don't want to give you another ID is they think you might be a mule. They think that you might be carrying drugs back there. So people like you guys right away would look at me and say, it's going to be a cavity search, Emil. They're going to be checking you wherever you go. You know? Or I bought you a green one too. And then I'll give you a green pen for tomorrow.
I think the big takeaway for me here is I don't think that everyone's got the wherewithal or the gumption to go into a jail. But I think it's an important field to be paying attention to, and you got guys like Emil are out there. So, my rap is check out the website. It'll be in the resource room. It's www.
It's putabookinajail.com, but it's also under the heading of whowon.com, WHO and the number 1.
Whowon.com.
And people are like, how did you get that?
Yeah, who won? So yeah, and this would be a great way to support. If you can't, it's service work. And Emil, we certainly appreciate your efforts into the jails, and we hope that us and our listeners can help support that cause even further.
Yeah, I'm really blown away. I mean, I'm sitting here kind of speechless, and I mean, I was loosely invited by my great grant sponsor, who you know. And I mean, the first thing I thought of is, oh my gosh, what would it feel like to have that door shut behind me?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's kind of where my head trash went, and and man, it's really strong. I really, and I'm looking at these coins. Can we have these?
You can,
yeah, because I think
I brought them.
I think we're going to take some pictures and get them out there for our listeners. And
right, again, we'll get a link to it in the resource room as well.
Yeah, that's really good stuff.
I did want to take a moment and just read one of these things that I do bring into the jail, just so that we can let the people know on the outside.
Yep. Awesome.
What I do is I'll type something up. I believe this one came out of maybe the Promises or Touchstones from Hazelton. So this one starts with a quote from Byron Janis, and it says, "It used to be that if I had a good working day, I thought I was a wonderful person, but otherwise I thought I was a terrible person." Huh. Now, what does he mean by that quote? So how often are we buoyed up by the successes and achievements only to be let down on an unsuccessful day? If we do well or have a good day, then we may feel we're good people. But if our day has gone badly or we've made a mistake, then our self-image becomes negative and critical. No matter what happens, no matter what our achievements, we're still good people inside. No one can be wonderful all the time, except maybe Mike. A good day on the job doesn't mean we're good, and a bad day doesn't mean we're bad. We can look at our self-image and see how we really feel. Then we can remember that we are good no matter what we feel. We may not be who we want to be. We may not act the way we want to act. We may not live the way we want to live, but we have the power to change all those things as long as we look inside and see the way that we are. We're good inside. How do I see myself? Today I can look within and ask for the courage to see good. Now, this is very basic, but if you guys have read the big book, then you know that We Agnostics has to lead you into the spirituality portion of our program, which has to be done, to me, through self-esteem. The only way to really find that higher power is to get past your own egotistical ways. And if you guys are anything like me, you know that when that mind starts to go, the only way for me to rebound is to get alone, to say a prayer, to do the things that are necessary for me to get back on track. And I have found with the guys in jail, a lot of times they get bored. If you start talking theology right off the bat, God this, God that, and tell them that, look, it's a higher power, and try to convince them, they still don't want to hear it.
Right.
So you almost have to come in with something that's a synopsis of a breaking the ego apart type literature that would let them know that, hey, even though you're here, you're a good person. Don't worry about it. You're going to be getting out. If you want to see how good or what you can do or what you can actually find in your change of your character, in the change of your character, you're going to have to find that out by doing this on your own. It's just I've learned so deeply that when you go in, I remember one time I went, it was near Thanksgiving, and they handed me a card, and it was signed. It had all their little jail remarks on there, like tattoo boy, and they had everything. But it was signed. It was to Mr. Dichotomy. Now, being the alcoholic
That's
I
awesome.
am, do you want to know what I recognized right off the bat? That they misspelled dichotomy
absolutely.
right off the bat.
That's the first thing I
Hey,
thought.
thank you for doing all this stuff,
Hey,
man.
man, this is
we hope
real
to support
stuff.
you. We hope our listeners will
And
pop
it
up
really
and support
impacted
you
me
too.
that he walked in. There's 50 guys sitting there. I mean, that's
I know.
progress.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Dude,
Emil,
man,
you
thank
thanks
coming
a lot
guys
for
in.
coming in.
Have
All
to
right.
get you guys into the jail.
All right, man. Thanks, Emil.
Love it.
Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.